Welcome to the Most Fashionable Crime YouTube channel. If you have not listened to this week's episode, which is about Anna Delvey, which is actually Anna Sorokin, be sure to check that out. I will link it in the description. To start off, I'll give like a brief breakdown of Anna before going in case you haven't listened to the podcast, but I definitely recommend listening to the podcast before watching this video. Anna Delvey is a fake German heiress, or a wannabe socialite. That's what a lot of people have called her. She was basically a con artist, scammer, fraudster that stole money from banks by way of fraudulent checks and not repaying back loans, as well as using her friends to purchase things for her. This basically went on from 2013 until 2017, primarily occurring in New York City. I'm curious as to what she was doing in Paris, France, which is where she lived and worked as an intern and maybe in a different capacity for a fashion magazine called Purple. So I'm really curious to see what she was doing in Paris and like the steps that she took before she got to New York City, and whether she was scamming in Europe or was that just something that she did when she got to the United States. I'm gonna go through her Instagram because her Instagram is very interesting. I will put a link to it in the description as well. For the podcast, I read a book called My Friend Anna, The Story of a Fake Heiress or something like that, written by Rachel Deloach Williams, who was scammed by Anna. They went to Morocco and Anna didn't have any money, so Anna kept telling her, just pay for this and I'll reimburse you. Just pay for this and I'll reimburse you. Long story short, Rachel ended up being in $62,000 of debt just from this trip. Most of the charges were on her personal credit card, but some of the other charges were on her company credit card, and she worked for Vanity Fairs. To summarize, Rachel kept her job, the charges got reversed, Anna went to jail for a little bit, she got out, and now she's, at this point, from what I've last heard, she's in ICE custody. So going through her Instagram, there is from February 15th of this year, she posted a screenshot of a tweet that she sent out. And the tweet says, "I write better shit from a prison cell in a day than some of these with 50 editors do in a year." And so I'm thinking that that's about her former friend, Rachel Deloach Williams. The beef initially started in Morocco when, you know, Anna was racking up on Rachel's credit cards. Eventually, Rachel worked with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office to kind of come up with this sting operation. Rachel was going to California, Los Angeles, Malibu, one of those areas in Southern California for work. It was a major photo shoot for the magazine. And so she was contacting Rachel. Before this, they kept going back and forth about, hey, like, where's the money? I sent a wire. I didn't get the wire. Oh, here's the code for it. Code doesn't work. Basically, Anna was beating around the bush, not giving Rachel her money. And then eventually Rachel got law enforcement involved. At this point, Anna is in rehab, and I think the rehab was called Passages, and it was very expensive. I want to say it was $60,000 for like a month or something. I can't remember. So basically, Anna is communicating with Rachel while she's in rehab, and basically what Anna wanted from Rachel was to meet at lunch, and she wanted Rachel to swap out water bottles for vodka. I don't know if it was for her or if she was trying to supply some of her rehab mates with alcohol, which they weren't supposed to be drinking. Anna did not have a job at all. It wasn't even like she was just pretending. She was pretending to be a German heiress, which I guess she wouldn't work. I don't know if it was a coincidence that she arrived in New York during Fashion Week or if it was intended. I could see her kind of using this opportunity to just hit up a lot of industry parties. Some of them might not be as hard or difficult to get into, and kind of just trying to network and hobnob with some of the who's who within society and kind of trying to select who she can use to kind of work her way up or just work her charm, I guess, on to kind of get what she wants, which is money. Speaking of, the next tweet that she put on her Instagram account says, "The only job I'm willing to accept at this point of my career is Goldman Sachs creative director." And the caption says, period. And I mentioned in the podcast that originally going to Morocco, a girl named Neff was supposed to be the videographer, but Neff wasn't able to go on the trip. It looks like Neff is now working with Anna and Netflix on the Inventing Anna show that I think is supposed to premiere on Netflix on January 1st, 2022, but I'm not exactly sure. But it's interesting because Anna actually has a pretty big following. Like, there's a lot of people that just love her. And let's get into how she made money. So I'm just going off a BBC News article. This said that initially Anna wanted to get a loan for $22 million to get her foundation off the ground. So basically what Anna did was she created fake bank account statements to show that she had 60 million euros in Swiss bank accounts. She submitted a loan application for $22 million to City National Bank in November 2016. Just going off this Wikipedia page, I'll put the link in the description. Basically, this says, quote, City National Bank refused to extend credit when Sorokin failed to provide them with bank statements attesting to the Swiss assets, and she took the loan application to another company, Fortress Investment Group. Fortress agreed to consider the application if Sorokin paid $100,000 to cover legal expenses related to the application. To obtain this money, Sorokin returned to City National Bank and convinced an employee to grant her a temporary overdraft facility for that amount on the promise that it would be repaid quickly. End quote. Fortress becomes suspicious of Anna because she's claimed to be German, but her passport says she's from Russia. And apparently the managing director at Fortress wanted to set up a meeting with Anna's bankers in Switzerland. Anna obviously did not want that to happen because it was all a lie.
It was all a lie. Guys, it was all a lie. She lied.
Anna withdrew the application, and the money that wasn't spent amounted to $55,000, and that was returned to Anna, which she spent on clothing and her hotel stays. By April of 2017, I believe all that money was spent because this is when Anna starts depositing fraudulent checks into banks. So she deposited $160,000 into Citibank and was able to withdraw $70,000 of the usable money before the banks realized that the checks were fraudulent. Anna was arrested, went to jail for a little bit, told that she has to pay a fine, restitution, all of that. But she secures a deal with Netflix, and Netflix is kind of with her during the trial. You can tell by reading Rachel's book that there seems to be a little bit of a beef between Netflix and HBO. Netflix, I think they believe that they're the ones that potentially are either funding the lawyer, maybe suggested it, or maybe like because he knows there is this Netflix deal that she will have money to pay him. Netflix had some sort of representatives while Anna was on trial, and they were at court every day. But however, on the opposite end, HBO did not have any of that. According to this book, I believe that's what I read. And I think Rachel is working with HBO, and then Anna is working with Netflix. And I think that is where Nev, the friend that I mentioned in the podcast that was supposed to be the videographer but couldn't go on the trip, I think she's working with Anna and Netflix. And apparently Anna has made $320,000 off the Netflix deal. But I believe all the money that she has gotten from Netflix has gone to people and companies that she owes. According to this news article, Anna is writing a book, and she has her non-fungible tokens project and her merch. And she's also working on prison reform. At least $170,000 of the $320,000 that she received from Netflix has been used to pay back banks. According to this article, I didn't know this, there is a New York law that prevents criminals from profiting off of their notoriety. But I want to say I read somewhere else that Netflix is trying to have some kind of workaround for her to actually get money off of this. Okay, so I kind of want to get into Rachel. Rachel kind of starts off the book wanting empathy by basically kind of, before we call her stupid, she's basically saying like, I know you're going to call me stupid for this. I really don't know. The situation is weird. Like when it comes to Rachel, I just don't understand why you would agree for all that money to be put on your credit card. Like just say no. Like they weren't even friends for that long. This wasn't like a lifelong friend. And I'm not trying to rip on her, but $62,000 and some of that on your company credit card, and you just thought sending nice emails was going to get the problem fixed? No, you barely know this person. I don't know, but I will be doing another part to the podcast episode, so we can go into that more. I think they were both, like I mentioned in the podcast, I do think they were using each other to a certain extent. I think some people, especially New York City being so expensive, I think some people would like the idea of having a rich friend that they can just kind of freeload off of. But I don't necessarily think that's the case because it didn't seem like Rachel was just having Anna cover everything. Like, if she was, I would think, yeah, she's just trying to freeload. But it'd be different if Anna was kind of like adamant, like, no, I got this. Like, I'm going to cover this. You have a job. Like, I don't have to work. I have a $60 million trust fund. I get $30,000 a month. That's basically what Anna was saying. But I didn't really get that vibe. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to check out the podcast, which is linked in the description.